Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. I am Janus Dead.
And I'm Jameson Dead.
All right, how is everyone tonight? I say everyone like there's more than just you and me here.
Well, I mean, it is everyone that's listening to us and as eager as I am to hear what we got on the menu for tonight's case.
I know, but I should stop saying like our listeners because they can't respond to us in real time. So it's a little fucked up for me to do that. Just saying.
That's all right. So, we'll let it go.
So we have a case tonight that has been recommended by a couple people. And it was one that I didn't think I wanted to do, and then I debated it, making it for Joyus's information because it is a more famous case. And then it would just kind of came down to we should probably do it. The two people have asked for it. It's time.
Well, let's give the people what they want.
So there's no real teaser because of how famous this case is.
All right.
But I am going to apologize for how I say, I'm assuming some of these words are like Creole because it's Louisiana. And,
okay.
Yeah, and I'm just going to apologize ahead of time for how I say some of these words because I'm sure I'm saying some of them wrong. My French isn't that good.
You are forgiven.
All right, so this is the case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm sure you know quite a bit about this one.
I do, yes.
So we're going to start with her mother. Dee Dee Blanchard was born Claudine Petre in Chack Bay, Louisiana, near the Gulf Coast in 1967. She grew up with her family in nearby Golden Meadow. She was the youngest of 5 children of Claude Anthony Petre Sr. and Emma Lois Gisclair. Her siblings recalled in a documentary, Gypsy's Revenge, that growing up, Dee Dee's mother would keep Dee Dee inside and stated that she had a heart murmur and emulated a lot of the same behaviors that Dee Dee would later do to Gypsy.
No, I mean, it's fucked up.
So relatives claim that she had a habit of stealing from her family, which they speculated was a form of retaliation when things didn't go the way she wanted them to. Her mother died in 1997. In interviews later about her family, they expressed suspicion that Dee Dee was neglecting Emma and might have killed her own mother by denying her food.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. But you can see where this whole thing, like you can see the cobblestones leading to this road.
Oh, yeah, by far.
So at some point in her early adult life, she worked as a nurse's aide along with Christy Blanchard, her sister, and Laura Petrie. When she was 24, she met Rod Blanchard, who at the time was 17, at a bowling alley. And they got married on December 27th, 1990. So she's got at least 7 years on this dude. And he was a minor when they met. So
that's a great start.
Right? Now, it's funny because at this point, this is where Joyous would be like, ew, but it's if it was reversed. But we're not, like, it's funny how we're not doing that now.
I don't know if it's just because we're just both too jaded or what the issue is. There's definitely a double standard when it comes to gender and age discrepancies. I can tell you that, at least.
Agreed. And to be fair, like I'm thinking like a 17-year-old kid isn't offering you much in the world, really.
Right.
So it's weird. But Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born on July 27th, 1991. Shortly before Gypsy's birth, the couple had separated when Rod realized on his 18th birthday that he got married for the wrong reasons. So he got married before he was even 18.
Yeah, and he comes to that revelation all of a sudden, I guess.
Just way too late.
Yeah.
He resisted Dee Dee's efforts to get him to return, and she took her newborn daughter to live with her family. They named their daughter Gypsy Rose because Dee Dee liked the name Gypsy, and Rod was a fan of Guns N' Roses. So, okay, sure.
Yeah, I've heard weirder stories for names, so yep.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just let that one go. It's not the worst. Her mother first began asserting that Gypsy Rose had an array of difficult health issues from infancy. According to Rod, who remained involved in his daughter's life at that point, by the time Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee was convinced that Gypsy had sleep apnea and began taking her to the hospital, where repeated overnight stays with a sleep monitor and other tests found zero sign of any kind of conditions.
Is that even possible that young?
I don't know. I don't know how sleep apnea works.
That's just weird that she would jump to that.
I mean, that's the problem with like Munchausen syndrome by proxy. You know, like that whole thing. Like it's like almost like a combination of people who, what are they, the hypochondriacs who always think they're sick. That's what I think. She just has it in her head her baby's sick and is going to die. And therefore, here we are. So Gypsy says that one of her earliest memories is her holding a Barney, the dinosaur, and walking along with her mom. So that's a weird memory. But my first memory, to be honest, is being carried by my aunt and eating M&Ms. Go figure.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, not, something completely out of the realm of normalcy here.
Right, exactly. I mean, Barney the dinosaur as a toy, that makes sense. So Dee Dee subsequently became convinced that her daughter had a wide range of health issues, which she attributed to an unspecified chromosomal disorder. Her mother told her that she had muscular dystrophy and needed a walker. Now, Gypsy's book claims that when she was 5 years old, her grandfather made her and Dee Dee take a bath with him.
I'm sorry, what now?
Yep. Gypsy in her book says that when she's 5, her and her mother were forced to take a bath with her grandfather.
Oh, I heard you.
I know.
Oh,
I'm repeating
God.
it for emphasis. Yeah, fucked. So when she was around 7 or 8 years old, she was involved in a minor motorcycle accident with her grandfather, in which she obtained a minor injury to her knee. After this, Dee Dee told her that she needed a wheelchair. You can kind of see how this just keeps fucking building.
Oh, that's so twisted.
Gypsy often went with her parents to the Special Olympics events. In 2001, Dee Dee claimed Gypsy was 8 when she was actually 10, and she was named the honorary queen of the Crew of Mid-City, a child-oriented parade held during Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Gypsy described herself as being an animal lover with 4 cats that she spent a lot of time with her grandfather, who was her best friend. The same grandfather who forced her to take a bath with her is her best friend.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's all sorts of weird inconsistencies here.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is the year that they also began attending sci-fi and fantasy conventions, sometimes dressed in costumes, since Gypsy could blend into the diverse and inclusive communities while in her wheelchair. So this was something she really enjoyed doing.
Which makes sense. It's an escape. It makes you feel included. It makes you feel like you're a part of everything.
Right, and let's be honest, like the sci-fi convention type people, these are people who kind of were bullied as kids a lot, like, the geeks and the nerds. So they're going to be accepting of a lot more people. It's not like she went to a homecoming.
Right, exactly, yep.
So Gypsy seems to have stopped going to school after 2nd grade, possibly even as early as kindergarten. So her mother homeschooled her after that, supposedly because of her illnesses being so severe. This was later believed to have been an attempt to isolate Gypsy and to further her abuse, which again makes sense. Because if you have her in school with other kids, she's going to try to do things that will reveal that she's not really as disabled as she is.
Not to mention she would start to talk and start to tell stories, and then...
And her body growth her growth spurt would be far sooner than the other kids, since they're already lying about her age.
Right, yeah.
So Gypsy claims she managed to learn to read on her own by reading herself Harry Potter books.
That's like some Matilda shit right there.
You know, I've never seen that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
everyone talks about it. It's kind of funny. Gypsy's father had remarried, and Dee Dee moved in with her father, Claude, and her stepmother, Laura, for 10 months. Claude is now being accused by Gypsy of abusing both her and her mother while they lived there. Around this time, Laura, their stepmother, developed a chronic illness, and family members later said that when preparing food for her stepmother, Dee Dee poisoned it with a thing called Roundup weed killer.
oh God.
Which, again, anyone around Dee Dee at this point that gets sick should now be reinvestigated.
Oh yeah, by far.
During that time, Dee Dee was arrested for minor offenses, including writing bad checks. Her family claimed that when they began to regularly confront Dee Dee about the treatment of Gypsy and express suspicion about her role in Laura's ill health, Dee Dee left with Gypsy and took off to a New Orleans suburb called Slidell. Once she left, Laura's health is said to have returned to normal.
Well, that's a smoking gun right there.
I think so. In Slidell, the pair lived in public housing. They paid their bills with Gypsy's father's child support payments and public assistance that Dee Dee had been granted due to her daughter's supposed medical conditions.
The amount of money she's swindling. Holy crap.
It's crazy. It's only going to get worse.
Oh, yeah, I know pretty much a lot of what's to come, but I'm sure that there are other details thrown in there that will throw me for a loop.
Yeah. So they saw various specialists, mostly at Tulane Medical Center and the Children's Hospital of New Orleans, seeking treatment for the illnesses Dee Dee claimed Gypsy had, which now included hearing and vision problems. While a muscle biopsy found no sign of muscular dystrophy, Dee Dee insisted Gypsy had, and she was successful in securing treatment for other purported issues. After she told doctors Gypsy had seizures every few months, they prescribed anti-seizure medication. You know, don't do any tests or
Oh my
anything.
God, wouldn't that like fuck her up even worse? Like, no.
Several surgeries were performed on Gypsy during this time, and Dee Dee regularly took Gypsy to the emergency room for minor ailments. One of the doctors saw Dee Dee and Gypsy in New Orleans that did see them was Robert Beckerman, who is said to have treated her for 10 years.
Holy crud.
So I just want to say, no offense, Robert Beckerman, but you missed some red flags, guy.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
I'm not judging you too hard. I don't know how busy you were, but seriously, what the fuck? After Hurricane Katrina destroyed their Louisiana home, Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose lived in a rented home in Aurora in southwestern Missouri. During their time there, Gypsy Rose was honored by the Olay Foundation, which advocates for the rights of feeding tube recipients, as its 2007 Child of the Year. The whole time, Gypsy knew that she didn't need a feeding tube, and she knew that she could walk. So at this point, it's not just Dee Dee who's full of shit.
No, but you got to figure that she's probably being coerced or made to say this stuff against her will at some level.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm not blaming the child, not yet anyway. But it's still funny that she didn't think to say anything. So in 2008, Habitat for Humanity built them a small home with a wheelchair ramp and a hot tub as part of a larger project on the north side of Springfield. And then the two moved there. So
oh my God.
they got a free house out of it.
Yeah. That's just insane.
The story of a single mother with a severely disabled daughter forced to flee Katrina's devastation received considerable local media attention, and the community often pitched in to help the woman who now went by Claudina Blanchard, who, they knew as Dee Dee.
Now, did they not look into any of the background here? Or did they just take her at her word or
Everyone's taking her at her word. Why would they question?
Why?
Why would they
Oh my
question the
God.
mother of a severely disabled girl?
Ugh.
Yeah, think
I-
about it. Dee Dee would set up an outdoor cinema at their Habitat home, and they would charge people $1 or $5 to sit there and watch movies. In the book, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose, Gypsy said she suffered from pain pill addictions from the age of 16. So many people who met Gypsy were completely charmed by her. She was 4'11", nearly toothless in the mouth. She had large glasses, and a high childlike voice reinforced the perception that she had all the problems that she and her mother claimed that she had. Dee Dee regularly shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the hairless appearance of a chemotherapy patient, allegedly telling her that since her medication would eventually cause her hair to fall out anyway, it was best just to shave it off in advance.
Oh my God, that's so sadistic.
It's so calculated. So as a result, Gypsy Rose often wore wigs or hats to cover her baldness. When they left the house, Dee Dee often took an oxygen tank and a feeding tube with them. Gypsy Rose was fed the children's liquid nitrogen supplement Pediasure well into her 20s. In the summer of 2009, Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics published a story featuring the reunion of Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose with their doctor, Robert Beckerman, after a coincidental appointment at the Comprehensive Sleep Disorders Center. The outpouring of support included many charitable contributions. Wonder why they're doing it.
Right?
In Louisiana, mother and daughter had at most availed themselves of the occasional stays at the Ronald McDonald houses during medical appointments. In Missouri, they received free flights to see doctors at Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City, free trips to Disney World, and backstage passes to see Miranda Lambert in concert, where she was frequently photographed with the singer via the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Yeah.
This is some high-level trickery.
Yeah, this is
God.
Yeah, this is a scam like nothing else. And I feel bad because every person involved thinks they're doing the right thing for this little girl.
Yeah, and then they become distrustful because they get screwed over.
Correct. So everybody else suffers because of people like this. Exactly. So Dee Dee would use physical abuse to control Gypsy. She was always holding her hand in the presence of others. And when Gypsy said something or suggested something she was not supposed to, or that say that, even imply that she might not be genuinely sick, she recalled that her mother would squeeze her hand very tightly. And that was kind of her clue to shut the fuck up. When their two were alone, Dee Dee struck her with her open hand or sometimes a coat hanger.
Oh, God.
Dee Dee seems to have at least once forged a copy of Gypsy Rose's birth certificate, changing her birth date to 1995 to bolster the claims that she was still a teenager, even though she was not. Gypsy Rose said in a later interview that for 14 years she was unsure of her real age.
Oh my God, that's so tragic.
It's so weird. And to think about it, you don't really know. You'd have to take everybody's word for when you were actually born,
Right, exactly.
So Dee Dee sometimes also claimed that the original birth certificate was destroyed during post-Katrina flooding, which is a really good lie. Dee Dee,
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
It's plausible. It
makes
nobody's
sense.
going to question it.
Exactly. So Dee Dee did keep another copy of Gypsy's true birth certificate, though. And Gypsy recalls seeing it during one of their hospital visits and becoming confused. Dee Dee had told her that that was a misprint. Now, her father, Rod Blanchard, also continued to make monthly child support payments of $1,200, as well as sending Gypsy gifts and occasionally talking to her on the phone. During one call, on her 18th birthday, he recalls Dee Dee telling him not to mention Gypsy's real age by telling him she thinks she's 14.
Oh my God.
I can't even fathom that. I would lose my shit on someone who told me to lie to my kid like that.
Right. And what's keeping him quiet? If somebody told me to do that, I'd do the exact opposite.
Yeah, I would too, but she's probably not really letting him around, would be my guess. So Rod and his second wife had hoped to get to Springfield to visit, but for a variety of reasons, Dee Dee kept having to change plans.
Uh-huh.
She told her neighbors in Springfield that Gypsy's father was an abusive drug addict and alcoholic who had never come to terms with his daughter's health issues and never sent them any money.
Oh my God.
Yeah. At a 2011 sci-fi convention, Gypsy made what many believe to have been an escape attempt that ended when her mother found her in a hotel room with a man she met online.
Oh, damn.
Again, Dee Dee produced the paperwork giving Gypsy's false younger birth date and threatened to inform the police. So that guy is scared shitless, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now, the other version of the story says that Gypsy had found out she was actually 19 and had made a plan with this guy to run away to Arkansas. She says that she had left a note for Dee Dee saying she wanted to be an independent woman and hitchhiked a lift at 2 a.m. to Dan's house. When she got there, she found out Dan was actually on parole and was not permitted to leave the state. Gypsy says that Dee Dee found her because she had left her phone behind and Dee Dee managed to track it down. Left it at the house, like where she went.
Right.
Gypsy said that she left willingly because Dee Dee told her she could continue her relationship with Dan. Gypsy Rose claimed afterwards Dee Dee smashed her computer with a hammer and threatened to do the same to her fingers if she ever snuck out again. So that's fucked up. Whichever story is true, and they both might be true.
Either way, they're both incredibly fucked and incredibly awful.
Yeah, that's so fucked up. Gypsy then claims that she was chained and handcuffed to her bed for 2 weeks. However, no handcuffs, leashes, or chains were ever found in the home. Dee Dee later told Gypsy that she had filed paperwork with the police claiming that Gypsy Rose was mentally incompetent, leading her to believe that if she attempted to go to the police for help, she would not be believed. Medical interventions continued. Dee Dee had some of Gypsy's saliva glands treated with Botox, then extracted altogether to control her purported drooling.
Oh, God.
Gypsy Rose later claimed that her mother induced the drooling by using a topical anesthetic to numb her gums before the doctor's visits.
How do you even think of this twisted shit? Like,
Dude, you
what?
got me, man. This is fucked up. This is other level fucked up.
God.
The lack of salivary glands, coupled with anti-seizure medication she was given, caused her already few teeth to decay to the point that a majority of her front teeth were extracted and replaced with a bridge.
Oh, wow.
Tubes were implanted in her ears to control her myriad of purported ear infections.
Yeah, that don't exist. Like, you're doing more damage because none of this is there.
Exactly. So in 2007, we're going back a little bit, Bernardino Flasterstein, a pediatric neurologist who saw Gypsy in Springfield, became suspicious of her muscular dystrophy diagnosis. He ordered MRIs and blood tests which found no abnormalities. He said to Dee Dee, "I don't see any reason why she doesn't walk." And on a follow-up visit after seeing Gypsy stand and support her own weight, Flasterstein noted that Dee Dee was not a very good historian, quote unquote. After contacting Gypsy's doctors, he learned that back in New Orleans when she was a kid, he learned that her original muscle biopsy had come back negative, undermining Dee Dee's reported diagnosis of muscular dystrophy, as well as her claim that all her records had been destroyed by flooding. He suspected...
Get out of that one.
Well, he suspected the possibility of a fictitious disorder imposed on another, therefore Munchausen by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Dee Dee contrived to gain access to Flasterstein's notes and subsequently stopped taking Gypsy to see him. Flasterstein did not follow up by reporting Dee Dee to social services.
Why?
I don't know. And he's a
Oh,
mandatory
God.
reporter, yeah. He said other doctors told him to treat the pair with golden gloves and doubted authorities would believe him if he reported it.
I still would have said at least something. Like, come on.
Yeah, he should have said something. 100% agree with you. When Gypsy was 20, she shared explicit images online and says she did this to make her feel good about herself. In February of 2012, police were called shortly after Dee Dee and Gypsy had been caught shoplifting arts and crafts supplies worth a total of $21 from Hobby Lobby.
That's it?
Yeah.
Come on.
The items were hidden in the wheelchair under Gypsy's legs. Dee Dee told the police that they had returned from Disneyland and planned to make a scrapbook, and that their intention wasn't to steal. It was a mistake that they had forgot to put the items down or back or whatever. Sometimes around 2012, Gypsy Rose, who continued to use the internet and phone freely, made contact with Nicholas Godejohn, a man around her age from Big Bend, Wisconsin, whom she said she had met in a Christian's Singles website. Nick, who described his life as lonely before he began talking to Gypsy, was arrested on March 11th, 2013 at a McDonald's for indecent exposure.
Yeah, he's a winner.
Yep. No offense, if I'm going to indecently expose myself, it's not going to be at a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Just saying. He was charged on April 17th, 2003 for carrying a concealed weapon and disorderly conduct, which carries a combined maximum sentence of 1 year in prison and $11,000 in fines, or both. He has a history of mental illness, sometimes reported as dissociative identity disorder, and also has autism spectrum disorder. So
Oh my God, that is a lethal combination. Holy crud.
Yeah, you can see how this all comes together.
Wow.
In 2014, Gypsy Rose confided to 23-year-old neighbor Ali Woodsmansey, who, unaware that Gypsy Rose was closer to her own age and always considered herself like a big sister, Gypsy told her that she and Goodjohn had discussed eloping and had even chosen names for potential children. Gypsy Rose, who had 5 separate Facebook accounts, and Goodjohn flirted online, their exchanges sometimes using BDSM elements, which she has since claimed was more what he was interested in, not her. So BDSM being bondage, sadomasochism, all that stuff.
Right.
Just in case you didn't know.
Oh, no, I mean, it's good to inform our listeners. I'm just as tapped as everyone else, so yeah, I understood it.
Yeah, most of us do, I think. So Woodsmansey, Ali, tried to talk her out of going, still thinking Gypsy Rose was too young and possibly being taken advantage of by a sexual predator. She considered Gypsy Rose's plans just fantasies and dreams, and nothing like this would ever really take place, is basically what she thought. Despite Dee Dee's efforts to prevent her from using the internet, Gypsy Rose maintained contact with Woodsmansey, who saved printouts of her posts until 2014. The next year, Gypsy Rose arranged and paid for Goodjohn to travel to Springfield. She planned to pretend to meet him for the first time at a movie theater with her mother, then appear to strike up a relationship based on their supposed chance encounter. When they did meet in person, Goodjohn says Gypsy Rose led him to the bathroom where the two had sex. This is disputed by Gypsy, who stated that the two did not have sex and that Nick had pulled out his penis but was unable to get it erect. The two continued their internet relationship and began developing a plan to kill Dee Dee. Goodjohn returned to Springfield in June of 2015, arriving while Gypsy Rose and her mother were away at a doctor's appointment. After they had returned and Dee Dee had gone to sleep, he went to their home. Gypsy Rose let him in and allegedly gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife with the understanding that he would use them to murder Dee Dee. She hid in the bathroom and covered her ears so that she would not hear her mother's screams. Goodjohn then stabbed Dee Dee 17 times in the back while she was asleep. Afterwards, the two had sex in Gypsy Rose's room and stole more than $4,400 in cash that Dee Dee had been keeping in the house, mostly in the form of child support checks. They fled to a motel outside Springfield, where they stayed a few days while planning their next move. During that time, they were seen on security cameras at several stores. Gypsy Rose said at that point she believed the two had gotten away with their crime.
Yeah, it's never that easy.
No, it really isn't. They even mailed the murder weapon back to Goodjohn's home in Wisconsin to avoid being caught with it, and then they took the bus there.
Holy hell.
I don't understand why people don't destroy shit like that. It's so
Right,
weird.
Exactly.
Like, dump it down a sewer grate.
Yeah, what are you going to do with it? Like,
yeah, like, you're going to mount it on a plaque and put it on your wall? What? Several witnesses saw the pair on their way to the Greyhound station and noted that Gypsy was wearing a blonde wig and walked unassisted. After seeing concerning Facebook status posted from Dee Dee's account, the Blanchards' friends suspected something was amiss. When phone calls went unanswered, several friends and neighbors went to their house. While the friends and neighbors knew that the two often went on medical trips unannounced, they saw Dee Dee's modified car still in the driveway, making the unannounced trip very unlikely. Protective film on the windows made it hard to see inside in the low light, and no one was answering the doors, so the gathered friends called 911. When the police arrived, they had to wait for a search warrant to be issued before they could enter, but they allowed one of the neighbors present to climb through a window where he saw the inside of the house was largely undisturbed and that Gypsy Rose's wheelchairs were all present. When the warrant was finally issued, police entered the house and found Dee Dee's body. All who knew the Blanchards feared the worst. Even if Gypsy Rose had not been harmed, they believed that she would be helpless without her wheelchair, her medications, and support equipment like her oxygen tanks and her feeding tube.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Right, but just imagine before you find out the truth, you think this girl's fucked. She's been abducted and she can't do anything.
Right, yeah.
It's crazy. A GoFundMe account was set up to pay for Dee Dee's funeral expenses and possibly Gypsy Rose's because they don't know what's going to happen when they find her. Now, Wood Mancy, who was among those gathered at the Blanchards' lawn, told police what she knew about Gypsy Rose and her secret boyfriend. She showed them the printouts which she had saved, which included his name. So based on that information, police asked Facebook to trace the IP address from which the post to Dee Dee's accounts had been made. So basically, it turns out that it's Gypsy Rose posting on Dee Dee's account as Dee Dee, and she was doing it in Wisconsin.
I know how much you love when that happens.
Yeah, people are so stupid, man. The next day, police agencies in Waukesha County raided Goodjohn's Big Bend home. Goodjohn and Gypsy Rose surrendered and were taken into custody on charges of murder and felony armed criminal action. The news that Gypsy Rose was safe was greeted with relief in Springfield, where she and Goodjohn were soon extradited and held on a $1 million bond.
Holy shit.
But in announcing the news, Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott warned that things were not what they appeared. The media in Springfield soon reported the truth about the Blanchards' lives. That Gypsy Rose had never been sick and had always been able to walk, but her mother had made her pretend otherwise, using physical abuse to control her. Arnott urged people to donate money to the family until investigators learned the full extent of the fraud. So basically, once he knew the truth, he was like, all right, guys, stop giving these people money.
Yeah, and at that point, I'm sure they had a pretty penny saved up, too.
I don't know how GoFundMes work, so maybe you can get your money back in certain fraud situations. Especially,
Well, yeah, I'm sure that there are extenuating circumstances where something like this, they would be able to get it back. But most of the time, it's, buyer beware kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. It's like any of those Venmo Cash App things. Like, you send it, and if you sent it to someone and it was a scam, yeah, it's probably gone. After the disclosure of how Dee Dee had treated Gypsy, sympathy for her as the victim of a violent murder rapidly shifted to her daughter as a long-term victim of child abuse. So basically, people who initially thought, oh man, poor Dee Dee, was now like, fuck her, she, did all this to her daughter.
Right,
So
exactly.
twisted. While the charge of first-degree murder can carry the death penalty under Missouri law or life without parole, County Prosecutor Dan Patterson announced he would not seek the death penalty for either Gypsy or Nick, calling the case extraordinary and unusual. After her attorney obtained her medical records from Louisiana, he secured a plea bargain to second-degree murder for Gypsy. She was so undernourished up to this point during the year she was in the county jail, her lawyer told BuzzFeed that she had gained 14 pounds while in custody.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and normally it goes the other way. People lose weight when they're in custody.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this was the first time in her life she probably got real meals. And we're talking about prison food. Which is so fucking
Yeah, that was probably like a banquet for her at that point.
right? So in July of 2016, she accepted the plea bargain and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nick still faced the more severe charge because prosecutors contended that he had initiated the murder plot, and he and Gypsy agreed that he was the one who killed Dee Dee. He was also more severely prosecuted due to different personal circumstances. Nick was given less sympathy and understanding due to a lack of involvement in the abuse. Gypsy's plea bargain agreement did not require her to testify against him, however. So in January of 2017, his trial was postponed when prosecutors requested a second psychiatric exam. His lawyers contested that he had an intelligence quotient, an IQ, of 82 and was on the autism spectrum, suggesting that he had diminished capacity, which I would argue might be true.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
He initially waived his right to a jury trial, but changed his mind in June of that year. So in December of 2017, a judge set Nick's trial for November of 2018. So almost a year later, they set this trial.
Damn.
I know, justice isn't very quick here.
No, especially if you decide to appeal stuff.
In their opening statements, prosecutors alleged that Nick had deliberated for over a year before the crime, while his lawyers pointed out his autism and said that Gypsy had formulated the crime and that their love-struck client had just done what she had asked him to do. The next day, prosecutors showed jurors the text messages, sometimes sexually explicit, that Gypsy and Nick shared in the weeks before the murder, often using various personas, as well as the knife he used to commit the murder. So they also showed the knife, which they were too stupid to get rid of.
Right. Yeah, they shot themselves in the foot on that one.
Big time. In some of the text, he asked her for details about Dee Dee's room and her sleeping habits. So clearly showing premeditation.
Yep.
These were supplemented by video of his interviews with police after his arrest where he admitted to killing her. Gypsy testified on the trial's third day. So she didn't have to, but she did testify.
Okay. All right.
She said that while she had indeed suggested to Nick that they kill Dee Dee to end her mother's abuse, she had also considered getting pregnant by him in the hopes that once she was carrying his child, Dee Dee would have to accept him. Which we've heard that before, but from the other end. Remember the Aaron Caffey case?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so
definitely.
twisted. Along with the knife that she had given to Nick, she stole baby clothes from a Walmart during a shopping trip so that she could go ahead with either plan. That's how fucked up this girl was.
Dear God.
However, she said Nick never told her what he thought about the pregnancy plan. After 4 days, the case was sent off to jury. Jurors had the opinion of finding Nick guilty of one of 3 murder charges. They could choose involuntary manslaughter, second degree, or first degree murder, or of course not guilty. After approximately 2 hours of deliberation, they returned with the verdict: guilty of first degree murder and armed criminal action. In February of 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder conviction, and the only possible option since prosecutors had declined to seek the death penalty. Nick asked Judge David Jones for leniency on the armed criminal action charge, which carries a minimum sentence of only 3 years, saying that he had fallen blindly in love with Gypsy. He received a sentence of 25 years on that charge, which is to be served concurrent with his life sentence. Not that it matters, it's a life sentence.
I was going to say that I always found it weird that they tacked it on after the life thing.
I just think it's, I
It's
think
just to prove a point. I get it, but
yeah, it's just weird.
It's overkill.
So the Blanchards' neighbors were shocked to learn that Gypsy's illnesses were fabricated. Aline Woodsmansey, whose information about their relationship with Good John led police to the couple the day after Dee Dee's body was discovered, she said that she cried out of disbelief upon hearing that Gypsy had never been sick or disabled. Her mother recalled how everyone had accepted Dee Dee's claims without asking for proof and wondered if the mother and daughter had been secretly laughing at their neighbors the whole time. Kim Blanchard, no relation, who had called the deputy sheriffs to the house that night, said, "What have I been believing? How could I have been so stupid?" But realistically, I've seen pictures of Gypsy at that time. It's convincing. The girl looked fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
You would never question that. It's not anybody's fault. They weren't idiots. It was just a really good ruse.
Yeah, they played the long game on that one.
Yeah. And Gypsy suffered for it.
Oh, heavily.
Yeah. So over 60 people attended a candlelight vigil for Dee Dee in downtown Springfield the night after the body was discovered, so before the truth came out. In a news conference, Arnott said of the case, "Springfield is a giving community. We surround people with love and finances who we believe that needs it. However, a lot of times we are deceived, and I think this is now so true in the case at hand." Obviously.
Yeah.
Dee Dee's family in Louisiana, who say they had confronted her about her treatment of Gypsy years before, did not mourn her passing. Her father, stepmother, and the nephew who first shared details of Gypsy Rose's actual health when she first started using a wheelchair all later said that Dee Dee deserved her fate and that Gypsy had been punished as much as she needed to be. Which I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I can see that argument.
None of them would pay for her funeral, and her father and stepmother flushed her ashes down the toilet.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, shit.
Rod Blanchard, Gypsy's father, is a bit more forgiving. He said, "I think Dee Dee's problems was she started a web of lies, and then there was no escaping after. It was like a tornado got started." He was happy the first time he saw the video of Gypsy walking under her own power, however. That would make any father happy, I think.
Yeah, no, totally.
So while in prison, Gypsy got engaged to a man named Ken, who she met through the Pen Pal program. Then they subsequently ended their relationship. It's kind of funny. And I have to say, I don't understand why people pen pal with people in prison, men or women.
As far as romantic or just in general?
Romantic.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree.
Because, most of them are there for a solid reason. It's just weird to me. I used to
Some people are into that or think, they can be changed or something.
I don't know. All I know is I worked with a woman who would write, violent criminals in prison, and she was all sorts of...
Really?
She was all sorts of open
damn.
about how sexually explicit she was. I was like, you're out of your goddamn mind. But
wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it goes back to the people who, wrote and went to see Bundy and shit.
Yeah. Yep.
So in July of 2022, Gypsy married Louisiana teacher Ryan Anderson in a prison ceremony with no guests present. Blanchard was released on parole on December 28, 2023, after serving 8 of her 10-year sentence. Gypsy, now 32, took to TikTok to share a video, which has since been deleted along with the rest of her account on TikTok and other platforms, in which she said she felt regret and apologize to all the people that I offended with a lack of accountability. A source explained that her decision was at the advisement of her parole officer, so she won't get in trouble and go back to jail. She said, "To my family, my dad, my husband, all I am is just Gypsy, and they love me for being who I am." She led the video off, noting that it's why my private Facebook and my private Instagram has hashtag love for who I am as my bio. She continued, quote, "Number one, to all the people that I offended with the lack of accountability, the first month or so that I was out of prison and the lack of accountability for my interviews, I'm sorry. I'm learning. I'm taking accountability for my part, and I'm saying this right now. I'm taking accountability. I did a bad thing." However, she added that she has, quote, "been given a second chance at life, and as a result, she asked her followers to give her a little grace. She said, "Let my actions match my words, and we'll go from there. I definitely have a support system, and I think I'm just now getting started to get around to listening to my inner self instead of all the noises that have been on social media. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching and hearing me out." She concluded by stating that the intention of the video was to offer a public apology to anyone that felt offended by her lack of accountability, particularly highlighting her regret surrounding coming out of prison and all the interviews that she did and stuff like that. So basically, people accused her of trying to cash out once she got out of prison.
Right, and you can't blame them.
No, because it looks suspicious. I get it, especially with the history. But realistically, yes, she orchestrated the murder of her mother, but she was really in some pretty shitty situations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I don't blame her. I hate to say it. I don't blame her. I'm not, of all the people we've covered on this case, on this podcast, I think she's probably on the lower end of my list for scumbags of the earth.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
So that is the case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard by multiple requests. How much of that did you not know?
Very little.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was all very much public information. Like, there was no surprises. It was too big a case. And again, I thought...
I mean, there were small details and there were, this and that. But, I mean...
Right.
I even watched... Did you watch the Hulu show?
I did not.
Based on... No?
No, I did not.
It was decent.
I love that her parents flushed her ashes down the fucking toilet.
Yeah. Talk about just desserts there. God damn.
That's amazeballs. Good for them.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you soon. I am Janus Dead.
And I'm Jameson Dead.
And we'll see you next week.